The Council of Harmonious Species was not built for speed or surprise. It was built for silence and forever. For centuries, the Chos had kept the galaxy calm, its vast, dark chambers and smooth, polished floors reflecting the absolute certainty of its own rules. Stability was the law of the universe, and the Council was its librarian. In the center of the largest chamber, which was designed to hold thousands but felt empty with just a few hundred delegates, stood the single human representative. Alex Riley was a quiet man, dressed simply in a gray suit that looked far too plain against the shimmering scales and crystalline robes of the alien delegates. He stood perfectly still, his hands clasped loosely in front of him, looking less like a delegate and more like a statue carved from patience. He was facing a massive raised platform where Elder Tlar stood. Tlar was an ancient being from a species that prized slow, deliberate movement. The Elder had a body like sculpted obsidian and spoke with a voice that resonated not through the air, but through the structure of the chamber itself, a low, grinding sound that signaled grave importance. The Elder had been speaking for almost an hour. Alex did not need the translator humming softly in his ear. He knew the words by heart. For 50 years, the Council had watched Earth. They had seen the constant, dizzying speed of human progress, new engines invented and discarded in a decade, cities built and replaced in a generation, and, worst of all, weapons that grew more powerful and unstable with every passing year. Tlar's main point was always the same. Earth was a risk. Earth was a source of friction in a universe designed for harmony. You have been granted 50 standard cycles of observation, Tlar's voice rumbled, finally reaching the climax of the speech. Your fusion technology alone violates 3,000 anti-escalation protocols. Your cultural instability threatens the systemic equilibrium of this entire sector. We offered guidance. You continued to invent with reckless abandon. The air in the chamber felt thick and heavy, like liquid metal. Alex felt the combined focus of 100 different alien species, all waiting for the predictable human response. A passionate plea, a promise to slow down, or a calculated diplomatic retreat. But Alex had been given his instructions directly from the planetary governance back on Earth. He knew what this final meeting meant. It was not a negotiation. It was a surrender demand. Tlar brought the long, drawn-out threat to its conclusion. The Chos issues its final edict. Earth will immediately cease all development of unstable, high-yield energy sources and adopt the Council's mandatory societal stasis protocols. Failure to comply within 72 standard cycles will result in mandatory quarantine and the dismantling of your indigenous space defense network. Do you understand, Delegate Riley? Alex took a slow, deep breath. He let the silence stretch for 5 full seconds, a pause that was considered rude and aggressive in Council protocol. He then raised his right hand and tapped the small, discreet comm unit hidden in his sleeve. The transmission was broadcast directly through the Elder's own network, ensuring immediate, simultaneous translation to every delegate and every Council vessel in the galaxy. Alex's voice was clear, simple, and conversational. He spoke 3 words in Terran English. We decline. Thank you. And with that, the entire diplomatic system of the Council of Harmonious Species broke. The Elder Tlar's face, which rarely showed emotion, froze in an expression of pure, uncomprehending shock. Defiance! The Council's automated response systems flashed in red warning across a dozen screens around the room. It was not an option. The response algorithms, designed over 10 millennia to handle pleas, concessions, tactical retreats, or even open warfare, had no variable for a simple, polite refusal. A sharp, painful whine echoed through the chamber as the main negotiation platform's logic core attempted to process the concept of non-compliance without subsequent concession. Several smaller delegates, whose species relied on the Council systems for emotional stability, began to rock back and forth in distress. The elder Tlar stammered a phrase that was immediately translated as, "The response, it is not accounted for." Alex Riley simply lowered his hand and waited. The Council's response systems had crashed entirely, overloaded by 3 simple words of human defiance. The entire galaxy was waiting for the Council to act, and the Council was stuck in an impossible loop, unable to process the fact that Earth had simply said, no. The 3 simple words from Alex Riley, "We decline, thank you," did not just shut down the Council's computers, they broke the confidence of an entire galaxy. The Council chamber was now filled with a low, anxious murmur, but the real trouble was far away, spreading across thousands of peaceful star systems. The panic began with a mistake. A junior data analyst on the Council's communications team, a nervous alien with 6 antennae named Krell, was supposed to release a short, calm statement about the isolated diplomatic incident. Instead, Krell accidentally attached the full security file detailing Earth's history. This was the shockwave. The file detailed not just Earth's current power, but its past. It showed thousands of years of constant evolutionary warfare. It showed how quickly humans could invent a deadly weapon, use it, and then discard it for something faster and more complex within a single decade. To the Chos species, who prized stability above all else, Earth's history was a horror show. They weren't afraid of human strength, they were afraid of human change. They feared a species that treated instability like a challenge instead of an error. The galaxy panicked because the threat was not military, it was chaotic. While the galaxy was running around trying to find a safe corner, Earth was busy. Deep beneath the northern ice, in a hidden facility, Maya Vance was focused, not frantic. She was the chief of defensive engineering, a brilliant woman who treated dangerously complex systems like puzzles she had to solve before they exploded. Her office was a mess of holographic schematics and half-finished tools, a perfect mirror of her brilliant, chaotic mind. "Report," Maya said sharply, looking at the main display which showed the Council's fleet slowly beginning to move. Ian Flynn, one of her lead physicists, responded. "Chaos shield readiness is at 98%, Chief. The main projectors are aligned, but the energy containment is still rough. We fire this thing once, and we're going to be replacing half the system." "Good," Maya said, without looking away from the screen. "If it's easy to replace, it's not innovative. We need the system to look impossible to track, not impossible to fix. Are the fuel cells ready for the stings?" The Chaos Shield was Earth's only real defense. It wasn't a heavy barrier like the Council ships used. Instead, it was a network of high-flux energy projectors designed to emit a signature that was mathematically impossible to calculate. It used wildly unstable energy sources and violated every safety regulation Earth had ever written. But it was ready within the Council's 72-cycle deadline. Meanwhile, the Council's mobilization was agonizingly slow. They called it Containment Fleet Alpha. It was a collection of hundreds of vessels optimized for blockades and non-lethal suppression. These ships were large, heavy, and protected by massive, stable shielding. They were designed for careful sieges, assuming Earth would eventually surrender when supplies ran low. Every step of the fleet's advance had to follow countless anti-escalation treaties. The Council's commanders had to prove they were being ethical, even while preparing to quarantine a planet of unstable beings. They had to follow the rules, even against a world that had just thrown the rulebook into a black hole. On a major Council media network, the anchors tried to calm the billions of viewers. They decided to show a historical human film clip, a modern action movie, to warn the people about human risk-taking. The clip showed a small human fighter jet making an impossible high-speed defense maneuver that involved ignoring every single warning light on the dashboard. The alien viewers simply stared. They saw the sheer disregard for the pilot's safety, the recklessness of the physics. The narrator tried to explain, "They call this maneuver reckless. It is a deliberate disregard for structural integrity." The alien population was not warned,
They were simply terrified by the impossible speed and lack of self-preservation. Maya Vance finally looked up from the screen, showing the slow, heavy council fleet crawling toward the solar system. She smiled, a small, dangerous curve of the mouth that Ian Flynn knew meant trouble. "They're moving at the speed of paperwork, Ian," she said. "They expect us to hide and wait. Let's show them we move at the speed of a car crash." She tapped the screen, highlighting the two small, single-pilot craft codenamed Stings. The pilots Ben Cross and Chloe King were already strapped in. The order was simple: prepare for launch. The galaxy was coming for a careful siege, but Earth was about to start a much, much louder game.
The Council's lead vessel, the Peacekeeper 7, was not built for battle. It was built for enforcement. It was a mile-long ship, heavy and slow, designed to deploy massive quarantine nets and project an aura of unmovable authority. Its shields were stable, drawing energy from a reactor that had been certified safe for 3,000 years. Captain Gorn, a creature of strict order and patience, stood on the bridge. His many eyes tracked the slow, steady progress toward Earth's exclusion zone. The plan was simple: deploy the quarantine, issue a final warning, and wait for the humans to give up. Captain Gorn expected surrender. He expected order. Meanwhile, deep beneath the ice on Earth, Maya Vance smiled at her command console. The Council fleet was moving exactly as predicted. Too slow, too careful, and too predictable. "Stings are clear for launch," Ian Flynn reported from his station. His voice held a thin layer of nerves, knowing exactly how dangerous the two small ships were. "Launch them," Maya ordered. "No fancy words, just noise." The two small single-pilot craft, codenamed Stings, shot out from a hidden launch tube. The pilots were Ben Cross and Chloe King. They were test pilots, meaning their job was to fly things that should not fly and survive things that should kill them. They were ready for this. Ben's voice crackled calmly over the comms. "Heading out to meet the welcoming committee. Chloe, let's show them what real inertia dampening feels like." The ships were built around experimental inertial dampeners. Normally, a ship that size could only turn slowly, easing its crew and structure into the force of the maneuver. The Stingcraft did not do this. They turned on a dime. They accelerated from 0 to absurd speed in a flash. They executed high-G maneuvers that should have instantly crushed the pilots into paste. But the dampeners worked. Just barely. On the bridge of the Peacekeeper 7, Captain Gorn's chief sensor officer cried out in a series of agitated clicks. "Two contacts. Small, high velocity. Impossible acceleration curves." The ship's tactical computer tried to track them. It had protocols for fast ships, slow ships, and ships using complex maneuvers. It did not have protocols for ships that moved like stones skipped across water, fast, erratic, and utterly reckless. Ben and Chloe flew without pattern. They did not fly in formation. They did not adhere to any military doctrine known to the Council. Their high energy, barely contained thrusters left a signature that flickered wildly. One moment they were a clear target, the next they were gone, replaced by a ghost image left by unstable plasma residue. The sensor officer was sweating a clear, cool liquid. "Captain, the signatures are breaking down. They do not maintain a constant energy output. One is moving towards Sensor Buoy 5. The target was simple. Sensor Buoy 5 was a stable, peaceful platform designed to monitor environmental readings. It was 30,000 kilometers from the Peacekeeper 7, a safe, non-threatening piece of hardware. Ben Cross guided his Stingcraft. He wasn't aiming for the Council ship. He was aiming for the idea of stability. He armed the experimental weapon prototype. It was not a massive beam or a long-range missile. It was a single-shot device designed to create maximum chaotic electromagnetic interference. "Maya, firing 1, Ben announced, his voice tight with concentration. "Make it beautiful, Ben," she replied. He fired. The weapon released a single brief pulse of highly compressed, unstable energy. The pulse lasted for less than a second. It hit the sensor buoy, and the small, stable structure did not explode. It was instantly vaporized. The aftermath was the key. The energy from the weapon did not dissipate normally. It burst into a cloud of unreadable, chaotic radiation that lasted for 30 seconds. It was electromagnetic noise, a tactical nightmare. The energy signature was impossible to calculate, impossible to replicate, and impossible to safely approach. On the bridge of the Peacekeeper 7, the main view screen was blinded by static. The crew was thrown into confusion. Captain Gorn received the report from his trembling sensor chief. "Captain, the buoy is gone. The signature is... It is impossible. The energy output did not match the vessel size. The weapon cannot be calculated. They are not using force, they are using noise." The truth of that statement hit the captain like a physical blow. The Council was prepared to fight an army. They were not prepared to fight a disaster. The entire containment fleet, which had been slowly advancing toward the exclusion zone, received Captain Gorn's report. The ships were designed for peace, not for the sudden, impossible vaporization of a simple sensor buoy. The fear of the unknown risk was greater than the fear of the human army they expected. The Council fleet froze in space, unwilling to approach the source of unquantifiable danger. Earth had declined their offer, and now they had given the galaxy a terrifying first lesson. Humans were not strong, they were simply too unstable to touch. The retreat of the containment fleet was not a planned maneuver, it was a confused crawl backward. On board the Peacekeeper 7, Captain Gorn was a creature stripped of purpose. His entire life had been built on stable equations and predictable reactions. The humans had given him the number 2, and their weapon had told his ship it was actually the number 3. The news of the fleet's failure did not travel through official council channels. It leaked through the panicked chatter of civilian transports and merchant vessels who saw the massive, defeated ships turning tail. The galaxy did not see a military loss. It saw a breakdown of order. This confirmed the worst fears of the Chose. The problem was not Earth's weapons. The problem was their lack of reverence for the old ways. Earth was not following the script. Across the galaxy, in the major commercial hubs, the true panic began. Trade routes stalled. Financial markets built on the certainty of Council rule collapsed. If Earth could defeat the containment fleet just by making noise, what other unstable nonsense were they creating right now? Could they make money useless? Could they make physics stop working? The fear was total, spreading like a disease of logic. Back in the underground facility, Maya Vance watched the reports come in, sipping a lukewarm cup of coffee. Her team was tired, but the victory of pure chaos had energized them. "The fleet is 200,000 kilometers out and holding," Ian Flynn said, a smile finally cracking his tense face. "They've shut down all major sensor systems. They don't trust their own readings." "Excellent," Maya replied. "Ben and Cluey, what's the status of the Chaos Shield saturation?" Ben Cross's voice came back over the comms, sounding like he was having the time of his life. "It's beautiful, Chief. The shield isn't a wall, it's 1,000,000 paper cuts. We've set up the projectors to rotate through 47 different types of interference. Half of them are just random noise bursts, but the other half are subtle logic traps that mimic the Council's own defense codes, forcing their computers to waste time finding the flaw in their own systems." Chloe King added, "We also put in a pattern that is technically harmless, but visually looks like the space around their engines is tearing apart. It's a simple light effect, but Captain Gorn is probably throwing things. Maya nodded. She hadn't given them advanced weapons. She had given them the ability to create doubt. She had given them the human strategy of bluff, chaos, and over-engineering simple problems. The core of the Council's strategy was always stability. Their systems were designed to run for millennia without error. This meant they had no rapid adjustment protocols. They couldn't just switch their entire defensive doctrine in 72 hours. They were stuck in the careful, slow method. Meanwhile, Alex Riley, the diplomat, was back on Earth preparing for the next phase. He knew the Council would soon call again, but this time they would not be issuing an edict. They would be asking a question. Alex spent his time studying the Council's historical failures, the few times they had met species that were genuinely random or utterly indifferent to authority. He found that in every case, the Council retreated not due to force, but due to inconvenience. They wanted harmony, and Earth was the most inconvenient thing they had ever encountered. The Council finally made contact again, but not through official diplomatic channels. A small, heavily shielded courier ship carrying a single lower-ranking delegate jumped into the far edge of the solar system. It stopped well short of the Chaos Shield. The message that came through was no longer the deep, commanding rumble of Elder Tlar. It was a nervous, high-pitched voice. Earth, we request immediate clarification on the nature of your new defensive architecture. We require stable data to continue proceedings. Alex Riley stepped up to the comms terminal. He didn't use any high-tech filters or grand language. He spoke simply and directly. Alex Riley, Earth. Our architecture is based on rapid, self-correcting instability. It has no stable data. To understand it, you must accept that it will be different every second. To proceed, you must negotiate based on the understanding that we will never stop changing. The comms went silent again. That statement was worse than any threat. It meant the humans were not just fighting for power, they were fighting for the right to be unpredictable. The Council delegate turned the courier ship around. They had what they needed. Proof that Earth was now a source of permanent engineered chaos. They realized they could not beat Earth because Earth had weaponized its greatest weakness, its own inherent instability. The choice was no longer quarantine or surrender. The choice was isolation or total galactic chaos.
The silence that followed Alex Riley's declaration was the loudest thing the Council had ever heard. For 4 standard galactic cycles, no ship approached the Earth's solar system. The Council fleet remained frozen, a monument to their own fear of the unknown. The galaxy had stopped caring about the fight and started caring about when the markets would reopen. The Elder Chose, Plar, was forced to call a new session. This time it was not a grand display of authority. It was a desperate, quiet meeting held through secure channels. The other alien delegates were tired of the panic. They just wanted stability back, even if it meant giving the unpredictable humans what they wanted. Alex Riley sat in a simple, well-lit room on Earth, facing a holographic projection of Elder Tlar. The Elder looked ancient and deeply weary. The other delegates appeared as small, hesitant windows on the screen. Earth's representative, Elder Tlar began, his voice dry and slow. Your actions have caused financial collapse and endangered the long-standing order of the galaxy. We ask you to disarm your Chaos Shield and submit to a negotiated, stable protection treaty. Alex did not move. He knew this was the final test. They were offering the old choice, safety in exchange for control. With respect, Elder Tlar, Alex replied calmly, we will not disarm. The Chaos Shield is not a weapon. It is an honest statement of who we are. We are a species of rapid, self-correcting change. Your stability means stagnation to us. If we accept your stable protection treaty, we stop growing.
We decline. A few of the delegates murmured in frustration. One of them, a creature made of shimmering glass, spoke up. "But your instability is dangerous. It is a risk to all of us." "Yes," Alex agreed simply, "it is a risk. And that risk is our sovereignty. The galaxy must learn that our constant movement is not a threat to order, but simply a different kind of order, an evolving one. You cannot contain the ocean simply because it has waves." Alex then made the final offer. "We propose a treaty of permanent guaranteed exclusion. Earth will remain outside all council regulations, taxes, and military agreements. We will not interfere with your stable zones, and you will not interfere with our unstable ones. In return, we will shut down the most disruptive elements of the Chaos Shield, allowing basic, secure trade channels to reopen for essential goods. We give you the stability you crave, but only by taking our freedom." There was another long silence. The council was horrified by the idea of legal, sanctioned chaos, but they were more afraid of the economic collapse and the spread of fear. The council had a rule for everything except how to deal with a species that wrote its own rules every day. Elder Clar finally sighed, a noise that sounded like ancient stones grinding together. "The council finds your proposal offensive to all established cosmic law. However," he paused, the word tasting like ash in his mouth, "in the interest of restoring harmony to the financial and transport sectors, we will accept your terms of exclusion. Earth is officially designated a free, unpredictable zone." The moment the elder finished speaking, a new, massive signal shot out from Earth. It wasn't a weapon. It was a high-powered, stable frequency designed to reset the alien financial markets. It was a single, helpful act of stabilization that proved Earth could be helpful, but only when it wanted to be. Down in the research facility, Maya Vance watched the Chaos Shield dim slightly, allowing the new, stable lane to form. "We won by being too annoying to fight," she said, letting out a tired laugh. Ian Flynn looked at the stable trade lane. "What about the stings? What about the unstable tech?" Maya smiled. "The stings are still there, and the Chaos Shield is still active. It's just whispering now, not shouting. They know it's there. That's the real defense." The final image on the council screen was a new map. The star that was once Earth's sun was now circled in red, marked with a small, flashing symbol that meant, "High risk, proceed with extreme caution." Earth had its freedom, not by conquering the galaxy, but by being the one thing the galaxy could not control. The galaxy was safe again, but they would forever look at that little red circle and remember the day Earth defied the Council and made the entire cosmos panic.